In this video, we will be going over the Algebra 1 final exam review for semester 1. So the first thing we want to do is, it says what is the value of x? So that means we are going to solve for x. So we want to distribute, and you want to be mindful that the negative is attached to the 3, and that is what we are going to distribute. Now, since we're not going to use 8x at this moment, we're just going to drop it down. And then we're going to multiply throughout the parentheses. Please be mindful that negative 3 times negative 4 will result in a positive 12. Now that we have the parentheses removed, we are allowed to combine like terms. Combine like terms have to be on the same side of the equation, left side, right side, and it has to have the same variable with the same exponent or just the constants. In this case, the only like terms are 8x and then minus 3x, which results in 5x plus 12 equals 2. Now, going through distribution and combining like terms, we now get a two-step. So we want to undo adding or subtracting. In this case, we're undoing adding by the inverse of minusing. 2 take away 12 is negative 10. And then we're going to divide by 5. And our x value is negative 2. Now, number 2 is a word problem. This semester, we use the guess method. So the given, we know that we're going to be adding because it says the sum. Consecutive means in a row. And then even, that's really important for our pattern. And we know that we're going to have 3 answers. And then the word is in math means equal to 60. Now on the side, I'm just going to remind you of what consecutive numbers are. So if I just choose 5, 6, and 7, those are consecutive integers. Now if I choose 7, 9, and 11, those are odd consecutive integers. And then if I just choose any consecutive integers that are even, these are known as even consecutive. So we always want our first variable or our first number to represent x. Now, when we're not talking even or odd, to get to the next number, we're just adding 1. To get to the following number, we're adding 2. However, for even and odds, we have to be mindful that we are jumping over 2 numbers. Well, we're only actually jumping over 8, which is 1 number, but 2 spots. So that's why it's x plus 2. Now we're jumping over 10, which is another 2 spots. So that's why that pattern is x, x plus 2, x plus 4. Now for some more space, let our first number be x. And now I'm skipping over 9, 1, 2 spots. So that's why it's x plus 2. Now I'm skipping over 11. So that's 2 more spots. So x plus 4. So right here is our pattern. So let our first number, our unknown, our first number is always going to be x. Our second number, since we're talking about even, is going to be x plus 2 because we had to skip over that odd number. And then lastly, our third number is going to be x plus 4. Now to create our equation, if you need to, because remember the sum means adding, we're adding our first number plus our second number plus our third number, and we realize that it equals 60. Now, just like in problem 1, we have to combine like terms. We have 3x's total, and then we have 2 plus 4, which just gets us 6. Now, when I taught this, I did it this way, and that would be fine. And then 2 plus 4 gets you 6. So if you want to do it vertically, that's okay. Some teachers taught it horizontally, like this first step, and that's okay. The main point is to get down to a 2-step. So then we can solve for x. Now, remember, calculators are allowed on the final. So if you need to do 54 divided by 3, that will get you your first number. Now, please remember that it says even. 18 is an even number. So then my next number in the pattern will be 18 plus 2, which is 20. And then my third number is x plus 4, which would get me 22. Now, how you can confirm that in the calculator? All 3 of these numbers are even. They're consecutive because they're even numbers in a row. And then when I hit enter, it's going to get us back to 60. And that is what we said it needed to equal. So you can write a sentence. Now for number 3, the equation for the perimeter of a rectangle is P, which stands for perimeter, and then equals 2L plus 2W. And then it says solve for L. So if you want to write a capital L so it doesn't look like a 1, that's totally fine. I'm going to highlight the L because that's what we need to be by itself. Now, following order of operations, we're undoing that. So we need to undo adding or subtracting first. Right now, this 2 is being multiplied to L. So we're not allowed to touch it. However, this whole term, 2W, is being added. So how do we undo adding? We subtract. Now we're allowed to move that whole piece, 2W, over to the left side, because whatever you do to one side, you're allowed to do to the other. And now P minus 2W are not like terms, they're different variables. And finally, we have one more step. So like I said before, we have multiplying by 2. So how to undo multiplying by 2? We divide by 2. So we have our L isolated. Now this would be an acceptable answer. Or if you need to simplify it, you can separate the dividing by 2. P divided by 2 is just P divided by 2. And then negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1W, or P over 2 minus W. So either way is totally fine. It just depends on how you want to simplify it. For number 4, just like number 1, we have to distribute. And now we're going to add 12 to both sides because we have to undo adding or subtracting first. Now, when we are dealing with equalities, we need to be mindful of this next step. Whenever you multiply, or in this case, divide by a negative on both sides of the inequality symbol, you have to remember to switch the symbol. So right now it reads less than, so I have to switch it to greater than. Now that is only when you are dividing or multiplying both sides by a negative. So then your number line has to read smallest to biggest. It's going to be an open circle. And since we're talking about greater than, the numbers greater than -4 are located to the right of it. Now it says, what is the equation of a line that goes through 6, 4 and 5, -2? And we want it in slope-intercept form. So that's y equals mx plus b. First thing we need to get to is our m. Now our m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I highly recommend you label x1, y1, x2, and then y2. And then you just substitute them in, -2 minus 4 all over 5 minus 6. Now this is easiest done when you hit control divide. So then we have -2 minus 4 and then 5 minus 6. So then our slope will be 6. Now you get to decide which ordered pair looks easier for you. I'm just going to choose the first one. Now this is what I call triple substitution. So our 6 was m. Our x is the one that I chose, is also 6. That is just a coincidence. And then the y is 4. So we want to plug in all of those items. And then we actually have to simplify. 6 times 6 is 36. And now to undo a positive 36, we have to minus it. So then we have b equals -32. So our equation is y equals mx plus b. And all we have to do is substitute in our m, which was 6, and our b, which is -32. Now we can confirm that. If we go to new document, add a graph, 6x minus 32. Now we don't actually want the graph or need the graph, it's the table. So I was given 6, 4. So 6, 4 is on my table. And then I was also given 5, -2, and 5, -2 is on my table. So we know that we are correct. Now point slope form for number 6 is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So all you have to do is label. We have our x, 1 in this case, which is -2. We have our y1, which is 9. And then we have our m, which is -2 over 3. So this is a different triple substitution. We are going to keep just the y by itself. And then y minus our y1, which is 9, equals our m, which is -2 over 3, parentheses x. Now this is where you need to be careful. We have this minus from the actual form, and then we have this negative. So minus and negative is really adding So that's why it's plus 2. And we're not going to convert it. We don't need to convert it. It says point slope form. So for the x and y intercepts, this is in standard form. Remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So for the x-intercept, we're going to let y equal 0. And then for the y-intercept, we're going to let x equal 0. So it's kind of like two mini problems. So for the first problem, we have 8x minus 16, but instead of y, we're going to replace it with 0. Now the nice thing about multiplying anything by 0 is it becomes 0. So then we are left with 8x equals 32. So then x equals 4. So remember, our ordered pair is always x comma y. So we just found 4, and to get that 4, we had to replace it with 0 for the y. So that's why it's 4 comma 0. And now we're going to do the y-intercept. So instead of x, we're going to put 0. Now this time, we're multiplying 8 times 0, which eliminates, goes away. Now, the biggest mistake I see when we give these types of problems is students forget the negative sign and then the 16y. So please don't forget the negative, because that will change your answer. Now here, our x was 0, so that goes first, and then our y is negative 2. So we have our x-intercept and our y-intercept. All right, Bart has $75 to spend on baseball cards. He has NBA Pro cards. So our given, we have $75. We know our NBA cards cost $3. And then our college cards cost $1. Now it also says our X is going to be NBA and our Y is going to be college. So all we have to do now is match it up. Since NBA is talking about the $3, just write 3x. And then since our y is talking about the college cards, you can do plus 1y. And then we know the total he has to spend is $75. Now for parallel lines, they need to have the same slope. For perpendicular, you need to have the opposite reciprocal. And then neither any other. So neither would be anything else other than the same slope or opposite reciprocal. Now, remember, for opposite reciprocal, if I give you an m equals 5, let's say, the perpendicular slope would be the opposite of positive, which is negative. And then you would also have to inverse 5 over 1 to be 1 over 5. So the perpendicular slope of 5 would be negative 1 over 5. Or if we had negative 3 over 2, the perpendicular slope would be positive. And then you would switch the numerator and the denominator. So just a friendly reminder. Here, this is already in slope-intercept form, so I know my original slope is 7 because y equals mx plus b. Here, we have to be careful. We have to solve for y. So we need to minus x on both sides. Now, if you want, you can put a negative 1 here. And then we're going to divide by 7. Now, since we have our slope, so let me put an M1 for the first line, and my second slope is -1/7. And these are actually opposite reciprocals. So they are perpendicular. We know they're opposite reciprocals because our first slope was positive and our second slope is negative. And then if you create a 1 underneath the 7 and you switch it, you flip the numerator to the denominator and vice versa, you're going to get 1/7. So that's why it's perpendicular, because it's opposite and the reciprocal. Now it says, what is the domain and range? So the domain is our x values. Please remember to write it smallest to biggest, and if it repeats, write it once. And then our range stands for our output or our y value. And the same rules go. So 7 repeats twice, so write it once, and then smallest to biggest as well. Now for number 1, A or 11A, if you want to make a mapping diagram, follow the rules that I just mentioned. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0 maps to -1, 1 maps to 2, 2 maps to 5, and 3 maps to 8. So if you want to, you can cover up the y values. Each x only has one y value. So yes, this is a function. So this was our domain. That's our range. Here, our domain is -2, 0, 1, 3. Our range is -3, 1, 3, 4. And then this would not be a function. The reason why it's not is this -2, it maps to 3 and it maps to 1. So that breaks it apart and cannot be a function because of it. So the domain are all of our x's. So write it smallest to biggest. Our range, be careful, negatives are smaller. So -11, -8, 4, 5, and 7. This is a function. And it is 1 to 1. Now, if I made a mapping diagram of this, we have -4, -3, 1, 3, 5. So -4 maps to 7. -3 maps to 5. 1 maps to 4. 3 maps to -8. And then 5 maps to -11. So it's a function because each x has only one y. And then each y is only connected to one x. So the y's are not shared. Here, we have -4, -2, 0, 2, and then 4. And then we have 1, 4 repeats, so write it once. And then 8 also repeats, so write that once. So -4 maps to 8, -2 maps to 4, 0 to 1, 2 to 4, and then 4 to 8. So if you were to cover up the y values, each x value has one y value to it. So yes, it is a function. But it would not be 1 to 1. The reason why is 4 shares 2 x's, and so does 8. So we would call this many to 1. For number 13, evaluate. F of 4, remember that is really x equals 4. So wherever you see a 4 in the equation, you're going to substitute it in. Now, I highly recommend just using your calculator. -2, substitute the 4 instead of the x, plus 15. So then we get f of 4 equals 7. So what this means is our x value is 4, and then our 7 is our y value. So we're not doing anything with f of 4. We're just telling the reader that our x value is 4. Now it says solve the system of equations. The easiest way of doing this, since it's in standard form, ax plus by equals c. I'm going to put a 1 here. Now you want to crisscross, and then you want to change the sign of one of them. So I'm going to change the sign of -3 to a +3. So we can eliminate the x value. Now, if you see a different way of eliminating, please do so. Make sure to distribute everything. I'm going to make my plus y a plus 1y. Now, this is the important part. When you get to this step, you want to make sure that 3x plus -3x are in fact opposites, so they can eliminate, which they are. So then we have 4y equals 20. So y equals 5. Now you're allowed to pick the easier equation. I will just pick the first one. So I have x plus y equals 6. And now we're going to replace our x or our y value. And now it's a 1 step. So we have x comma y, which is 1 comma 5. For number 15, I recommend substitution because we have y equals y equals. So then we have, and you can just put this into your calculator as well and graph it if you want. So I need to undo the minus 4x by adding 4x. And now it's a 2-step. Now you get to substitute x into whatever variable or whatever equation you would like. Since I've used the first one and it's already circled, I'll just use that. So then 2 times 4 is 8, take away 5 is 3. So my ordered pair is 4 comma 3. Now if you want to do it in the calculator by graphing, that is totally acceptable. All you want to do is go to New Document, Add Graph. So my first equation was 2x minus 5. Hit tab for the new equation, and then negative 4x plus 19. Now remember the y-intercept is 19, so it's off of our grid, but you can still see our red line. Now the three buttons you want to remember is menu 6-4. You want to do the left, which is lower bound. Click the center key. And then go to the right. And then our answer is 4, 3. And that's what we found using substitution. Same thing with number 16. This is set up for elimination. So crisscross them and make one of the factors opposite. So I'm just going to distribute the first equation. Going to distribute to the second equation. All right, we have negative 1y equals negative 8. I'm going to divide by negative 1. And then use whatever equation you want. I like to use the first one. Now 8 is going to be replacing our y value. So 2x plus 24 equals 6. So 2x equals negative 18. So x equals negative 9. So our ordered pair is negative 9, 8. Now you can check this on the graph as well. So if you want to go to relation, and then this allows you to type it into standard form. So that's my first equation. Hit tab to enter the second equation. So it's off the screen, so you can play with the window, menu 4, and then you can zoom out. You want to go to the area where you think it is. Okay. And then go menu 6-4. And in fact, we found the ordered pair negative 9, 8 using elimination, but it is also negative 9, 8 using graphing. All right, here we have our b value, positive 3, and then we have our slope, 1 over 2. So that means positive 1 and to the right 2, or the opposite of that, which is down 1, left 2. So up 1 level, right 2, up 1, right 2. You keep doing that till you run out of space, and then do the opposite, down 1, left 2, down 1, left 2. And then just make sure you draw your straight line using your ID and arrows on the both ends. So number 18 is a word problem. So I'm going to use the guess method. So our given, we have 10 friends. They get a discount code. So each of those 10 friends are subtracting $12. And then we have a total of 300. So I'm going to put a star next to that minus 12, because not only one ticket got it, but all 10 got it. So we're going to have to do something with that. So the price of one ticket, you can say, is the original amount. So we know that 10 friends got this ticket. So we want 10. And we know the original amount everyone paid. So since everyone paid the original amount, we have to use parentheses. But not everyone paid the original amount. We actually had to subtract 12 from that original amount 10 different times. So that is where we are going to use the equation and parentheses. So that parentheses just means every single person got that $12 off. So if I wrote this 10 different times, which is a lot, it would be the same thing as what I just wrote to the right. Now, there has to be an easier way than writing all of these down. So one friend got $12 off, another friend, so on and so forth until all 10 of them got $12. So an easier way of writing it is writing 10 parenthesis all of that. So then we just distribute. So we have 10 friends that bought the tickets, and then 10 times negative 12 is negative 120. So there was a total of $120 taken off of their bill. Now we have a two-step. So now when we solve for x, we can realize that each ticket originally cost $42. So the sum of pi, so this is, it says is the sum of pi and 500 rational or irrational. So pi is irrational and 500 is rational because it's a counting number, it's a whole number, it's an integer, which is all belongs to the rational family. So what we learned in the beginning of the year is when you add an irrational plus rational, it is going to have an outcome of an irrational number, at least in this case. So we know that, remember, an irrational number is a decimal that does not have a pattern and it goes on forever. So pi is definitely the most famous irrational number. So if you add 500 to it, it's just a bigger irrational number. For number 20, it says, does the following have one solution, no solution, or IMS? So if I distribute, I now have variables on both sides. And if I take away 10x on both sides, we are going to be left with a false statement. A false statement symbolizes no solution. So one solution would be when you have x equals a number. No solution would be a false statement. And then infinitely many would be a true statement. So in this case, we definitely have no solution. And then our last question, it says find the slope from this graph. Now you could technically do rise over run. So I'm going down 1, 2, 3, which is negative 3, and then 1, 2 to the right. So then you would remember m is negative 3 over 2 because it's rise over run. Or x1, y1, x2, y2, and you plug it in. Y2 minus y1 over x minus x1. And you would get the same answer of negative 3 over 2.